Broadcasting live from the IRSMedic studios, it's Parental Advisory. And welcome to Parental Advisory.
And welcome. And for those listening live, we just apologize for the delay. It's the Friday before Halloween. And things are just full of excitement down here. We had to get into our costumes and then quickly get out of costume. Really something. You really should have seen it.
Super fast.
Yep.
So today what we want to talk about, Anthony, is we want to talk about Irwin Schiff, an American tax protester.
And that might be a word that you're not allowed to use, because now I think they say tax to fire. There was some crazy thing about that. You don't call them tax protesters anymore. Or maybe I'm making it all up. There is some sort of thing about that.
Who's they that said that?
The IRS.
Oh, really?
I don't know. Yeah, there's some weird things where there's like, no, you're not allowed to call them tax protesters anymore.
You have to fill out form 1217 and then call them.
Right, depending on
what their beliefs are. We've got a few different brackets to
there
put
you
them
go.
in.
There you go. Exactly. Well, that's wonderful.
So Irwin Schiff was born on February 24th, 1928, right here in New Haven, Connecticut. Recently passed away, October 16th. He attended the University of Connecticut. He graduated with a BS. I thought this was pretty cool. I wasn't sure when you first mentioned a tax protester if he was just some crazy guy, but he had a double major in accounting and economics. So very educated, obviously.
Those are the two hardest. And I did my degree was in finance and accounting. The accounting classes in the if I know that's what we always said. No, not finance. And that's how we got more money out of our degree.
Okay,
that's the way to do it. And the accounting classes and economic classes were always tended to be the most difficult in that major. So it's he didn't shy away from tough subjects.
Mm-hmm. After he graduated, he went into insurance brokerage business, also right here in Connecticut.
And I would say that's a pretty lucrative business, especially then.
The insurance capital of the world, right?
And Connecticut was booming. The economy was booming. My dad tells me about the glory days that you could go to North Haven if you needed a job. You just drove down to Pratt and Whitney, North Haven, and then they gave you a job, and you'd start at 4:00. They didn't give you the first shift.
Yeah.
But if you wanted a job, yes, you start at 4.
Yep.
See you then. And it was enough. That was enough to raise a family. Your wife didn't need to work, and those were the glory days.
God,
yeah.
Imagine if we could get back there.
Yeah.
He was then known for writing and promoting literature in which he claimed the income tax in the United States is applied incorrectly. He took it to civil cases. He lost several civil cases against the federal government. He had a record of multiple convictions for various tax crimes, and he was serving a sentence of at least 13 years for tax crimes at the time of his death. And my question to you was, how did he get there? How did he get from a double major in accounting and economics to anti-tax guy? What was the steps in between?
In reading from his son, Peter Schiff, who ran for Senate, and I read some things about what it was like growing up with his father. He said that, his father would always be, asking the kids questions on road trips and asking them, making sure they knew certain things. And, it was really, really important that his kids were well educated. And to me, I think I know how he got there, how he got from that economic or from being looking for himself, being an insurance broker, to where he became the number one tax protester out there. And I think it starts where, because it sort of happened to me as well, except I sort of know what the battlefield looks like a little bit more.
Which course to take.
When you get to, at some point in your life, when you're an attorney, you're going to be introduced to the Austrian School of Economics. Okay, and this is your free market. Milton Friedman, what is it all about? Most people don't really know what it's all about. Most people really don't understand what libertarian is. And it's not anarchy. Libertarians do believe in government, but that there's limited roles, and you should be suspicious of government at every corner, because there's usually someone in government who's working some little special inside deal for yourself that you don't know about. And who knows how many wars were caused because someone in government really wanted something somebody else had, and ego was hurt. And now we're going to align with this person. Well, now I'm going to align with this person because you're aligning with that person. Okay, now the whole thing is going to go blow up. And a lot of this was written right after World War I. And when you look at the history of World War I, it is like a soap opera of always changing allegiances. Allegiances are always changing. The most important thing is always happening. This is the biggest enemy we have, but now we're going to be their allies. And that was the thing. So when you start thinking of a war like that, if it's so important to fight for your country, why is your country always changing positions? And so that's really where a lot of this sort of thinking came about, to say, I think these governments are full of crap. This doesn't seem really interested. It seems that we're fighting for the governments. The governments really aren't here to protect us. And so a great, one of the best authors, and this is a lot of the stuff where I got it from, is Mises.org, the Edwin Mises Institute, and really one of the more popular libertarian societies. And some of the writing is just incredible. And one of my favorites, and I think my suspicion is this is where Irwin Schiff starts to become radicalized. You read Anatomy of the State to describe what is the state, what is the country, what is the government. And there's just some things that come through that writing that I think, haunt me, that, really, and he this entire book where he goes and describes what the state is, and how it uses its own power to self-perpetuate. The greatest danger to the state is independent intellectual criticism. And that's where I see Irwin Schiff going. He's like, yeah, that's right.
Yep.
What they don't want is people not buying their line of BS. Because once that people stop buying it's game over. It is a lot of smoke and mirrors. There's a lot of things people are intentionally kept in the dark about. So when you read this, you see like the state has, the state is the entity that has the legal monopoly on violence. And if you think about everything that the state does is always backed up by a gun. And a lot of people have a hard time with that. Yeah. A lot of people are like, no. The government's us. Why would we do that to ourselves? And, well, because we believe it to be, you're not really thinking it through. You're thinking that, so you agree with everything what the government does. Well, no. Okay, but if somebody doesn't agree with the government on that, if they go their own way, they're going to be met with a gun at some point. And so that's really how the radicalization starts. And a lot of these guys, and I mean the Mises School and the fans of them, they're really, really brilliant guys. And Irwin Schiff is no different.
I realize this is going to make me sound like a jerk, but originally, before I became more knowledgeable about the subject, if you told me tax protester, I would think like dirty hippie who's not that smart, who just doesn't want to pay his taxes. But it makes sense that it's actually the more educated people, because they have more of an opportunity with their knowledge to become outraged. They get it.
Right. Well, he has a luxury of time to actually review this and stop to think in what's going on. And what it comes down to these guys is always integrity. It's always the unfairness, because a lot of times these guys are benefiting from the very system that they want to destroy. And like myself, I personally benefit from this U.S. tax code that I want to see destroyed. Everything I have is because people said, you know what, Anthony, it's going to be worth it to pay your firm to handle the IRS for me because it's out of control, because I can handle it. Everything I have is all because of this. But yet, I still, intellectually, it bugs me. Morally, it just, some nights I can't get to sleep just thinking about what's going on and what's really going on, and that the public doesn't see the IRS and the government for the danger that it is they still believe this line, like, oh yeah, it's all about truth and justice. Trust the government. It's good for you. And that's not exactly what I do, and nor was it what Irwin did, and a lot of people, and a lot of the same people. They and I think we're going to talk a little bit about some of the people who he attracted in his group.
Yes. Yep. So what I'd like to touch on after the break is obviously very brilliant. Became very irritated with the way things work. So where did he turn how did he get off course a little bit, in our opinion? We'll talk about that right after this.
Hello, Claudine.
Hi, Anthony.
Did you know there's something going on around? It's been going on for 2 years. People have been making scammy calls to people claiming that they're from the IRS and that they better pay them or else.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
That could be scary.
It's scary, but there's a few things you can use to determine whether or not this is a real call from the IRS or a fake call. What do you think one of the first things is?
Well, the call.
Yeah?
The IRS says they never call. Not 100% true. 1 out of maybe every 10,000 calls is legitimate.
And if you were going to have a call from them, you would probably expect them. Did you know the other thing about these calls I've noticed, because we've called back, there tends to be an accent about them, and it would be someone of a call center in India. And the IRS doesn't have call centers in India. They have a call center in Puerto Rico, but they have a Spanish accent there.
Makes sense. They demand you pay in full a tax bill that you never received. You always receive notice first unless you move.
Unless you move. So you've never heard of this bill before, but this is the first time. You know what else they want you to do? They want you to pay by credit card right then and now. The IRS doesn't take credit card payments. If they did, I'd love it. I'd be able to make my payroll, my employees' payroll tax deposits. I wouldn't even have to work anymore.
All right, so another thing that may happen is they may get testy really quick when you challenge them on their authority or ask them for an ID number.
I have been called things when I've called back, some names, some strings of words together. None of them I would repeat right now.
They threaten to send the police to come out and get you if you don't pay. Wow.
Officer Callahan's going to get on his motorcycle and come and get you. Well, what these scammers don't know is some of the intricacies of U.S. law. The IRS and your local police department don't really talk to each other, and your police officer might have a tax problem himself. If the IRS was going to get somebody, if you were actually a subject of criminal charges, you'd know about it from other things such other than a phone call. They like to appear in person, the IRS special agents, and also the U.S. Marshals would be coming to get you, and you wouldn't get that warning phone call to say, hey,
we're coming.
We're coming, so stay right there.
Did you unlock the front door? There's usually more tells to determine if a call is a scam. A call is usually not a scam when you're expecting from a call from a specific person at the IRS, so you may want to pay attention to those.
Yeah, that could be important. And you know what, these scammers are always adapting, and we learn a lot of things because our clients share us the voicemails that they get. They tell us what's going on, and a lot of people to our website come and tell us what's going on. So in order for us to stay on top of it, if you learn of any new scam or any new little trick they're using, if you could please send that to info@IRSMedic.com. We could help everybody out, everybody but
the scammers.
The scammers.
That was awesome.
That was awesome. Very informative. And we're back live. Parental Advisory. We're talking about Irwin Schiff, an American tax protester. What we've realized so far is he was an extremely educated man and started to learn about the government and learn quickly that they perhaps don't have our best interests at heart. And I would say this irritated him.
To a huge degree.
And he wanted to share that.
Right. And I think even before, and I mean, back in the 60s and the 70s, libertarians, I'm going to just imagine, there's probably fewer of them than anything. There was no alternative media. Mm-hmm. You know, there was ABC, and they had one line, and it was one unified line.
Yes.
The U.S. is the best country on earth, and we always have the best interests at heart. The U.S. is best. Trust the government. Trust the government. We care about people. And how frustrating it is now. I mean, think about it. Like if you disagree with the government now and disagree with actually the whole Republican versus the Democrat thing, you have alternatives to speak out and find people like-minded. Back then, you were shut down, and there was no way to get out your message. You're going to stamp out a few pamphlets. Where are you going to hand them out where you don't look like a crazy person?
Well, that's what he did. He began selling books about the tax codes being illegal. He eventually got to the point where he had a website called paynoincometax.com. Great name for a website.
Name, right? Yep. Love it.
He was selling packets of unique and sometimes, you said, frustrating arguments.
Yeah, frustrating. When I look at Peter Schiff's arguments, I have no doubt in my mind that the U.S. income tax, as enforced, is completely unconstitutional. It violates the Constitution. It violates the limited enumerated powers. It goes beyond that scope of limited powers. Even if it didn't, it violates, let's see here, the 4th Amendment, 5th Amendment, 6th Amendment, 9th Amendment, 10th Amendment, perhaps the 14th Amendment and the 13th Amendment. There's no way this thing should be constitutional. Those are my claims, and that's where I rest. And I rested my case there. Then I say, however, I am not a federal judge. My opinion on it, while correct and awesome, carries no weight. It doesn't matter. But I would just say you have the intellectual high ground. If you're saying the income tax is unconstitutional, you're not legally correct, but you're morally correct. You're intellectually correct. Why don't we just stop there? Why don't we just stop there? But that's not what Mr. Schiff did. What he did was he went in, and as we said the other day, is that he was trying to out-IRS the IRS.
Yes, he was well-intentioned.
He was well-intentioned. He goes, okay, well, use this form and put this down here, file this thing here, follow this exact thing, and you're gonna trap them. You're gonna trap them. And which just seems to be so naive because, the federal judges exempted themselves from the income tax until the 30s. And so it's like, that's the entity you're expecting. Let's just assume you're right. Let's assume that you have found this secret way to bring down the IRS. That, oh yeah, oh my God, he got it.
Crap,
oh
guys.
my God, he figured it out. Oh my God, this guy's, oh my God.
Someone needs to make a new form.
That's
Form
it.
1271, Section 8, or else he's got it, okay?
He's got us on this technicality. Okay, let's dismantle the IRS. Federal judges are like, yeah, I guess we're going to have to get another way of payment. There goes that lifestyle. I really liked being at the marina.
Do you think Walmart is hiring?
What am I going to do? Right? So it's like, even assuming you were right in any sort of this, they're not going to fine for you.
No.
They're just going to laugh. I mean, not laugh at you, but they're not going to take you seriously, ever. And all you're going to be doing up there is getting more angry and more angry. And then I think where he starts to believe a little bit of his own BS. Because I try to read, and I've been following Irwin Schiff and his proteges for years. I had many people who would come into my office, and I never understood this. They would come into my office, and they would say, yep, I want to have a consultation with attorney parent. Okay, so I'd meet with the guy. I'm like, yep. And it starts off like most of them like, yeah, I got a big problem with the IRS, but I want money. I'm like, okay. So what do you want to do? Do you want to get rid of this, or what's your actions here? Well, I just want you to know that the income tax is unconstitutional. Okay. And now what do you want to do about it? Well, I have some letters and some things here. Have you ever heard of, they would go through one of the things, the original original issue discount, which is some just baffling scheme where that because you were born with a Social Security number, the Federal Reserve has an account for you with your Social Security number that offsets any taxes you owe, and all you need to do is use this original discount form and file it, and then you're all set. The original issue discount has nothing to do with that. It's just for calculating your basis when you're selling a stock. You're taking an idea, you're misapplying it, and you're believing what you want it to be. I want it to be this. I want the world to be fair. So I'm going to take all these IRS forms and fill them out in a way that somehow I can conjure together something that I can agree with. You're seeing what you want to see. You're believing what you want to believe. And they would go through whatever their thing is, and I'm like, okay, well, you're obviously, so you're following this guy, okay, do you know, and it would always be somebody. It's like, well, I'm like, that guy is in prison, and then the justification around that is like, well, of course, because he's telling the truth, so the government has to put him in prison. Okay, what do you want to do? Well, I want you just to agree with me that that this is a good path to follow. Not this, that. But I said, but it's not. I said, you're going to end up with hurt and heartache, and you're going to bring your whole family down to the ground. Did you talk to them about this? Does your wife know that this is what you're going to do? And then we're going to talk next week about innocent spouse, about how sometimes it can help them out. But you are dragging your whole family along. You're going to hold them hostage on your intellectual quest to prove that the IRS is unconstitutional. I already told you it's unconstitutional.
We agree.
Stop right there. I said it is. What do you want me to do? It is. But I'm just telling you, the state protects the state, and it doesn't matter. It's like, when you understand that we're at war with the government things start to make more sense. You just don't say, oh, we're at war with the government. Let me go and act like we're not.
It'd be like me going, you know what? I think I'm going to go get Al Qaeda. Just me.
Right.
I'm going to fly over there. I'm going to get those guys.
I'll look for the guys who are, it's like you just go for it.
Yeah, just me.
And just me. You know why? Because I found the secret book on how to defeat Al Qaeda. I found it. And what you do is you fill out this form and hand it to Al Qaeda. They're going to read it, and they're going to be caught in some sort of, loop. We're like, whoa.
This little blonde chick from the U.S. She who would have thought?
That's I
who
think
brought
that
us
is the
down.
thing. And people might say, well, you're comparing the U.S. government with Al Qaeda. Well,
yes and no.
yes and no. I would say, we don't want to compare it with Al Qaeda because we don't do this in nearly the same things. And the U.S. is a remarkable group of people. We don't have the government we deserve, or maybe we do. Al Qaeda is not a good bunch of people in any sort of way, but that you should have the same suspicions of Al Qaeda, of the U.S. government, that you do of Al Qaeda.
And know that you can't take them on alone.
You can't. That's absolutely insane. It's a suicide march. You're not going to accomplish anything. Suicide, and this is the using suicide as a weapon of terror. Well, yes, it's a weapon of terror, but it has no strategic value. The Japanese tried it at the end of World War II and did nothing. It did nothing except make people suffer, but it didn't slow down a damn thing. It was just it's like once you're on suicide, you already lost. And that's sort of where I look at this. It's like you started already going here, Irwin. You're a brilliant guy. You already start going all this way to try to basically go on this suicide march where you know better than everybody else what the government really is. And yet there you go to say, I'm going to take them on. Well, what do you think's going to happen? You know what's going to happen. And I think maybe he did know what's going to happen. And I mean, it is brave. And I don't mean to knock his bravery.
Oh, no.
Not at all. I mean, I wouldn't do it. I mean, sometimes I'm like, I think my family would have a problem if I go full.
Right. He really wanted to make a difference.
Right.
He was so outraged.
Right.
He felt compelled to do something. And I get that. But like you said, knowing what you're going up against, that's got to sort of halt you in your tracks a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we were talking about, selling kits and selling books and selling these things to the general public. And from the general public point of view, probably not the best idea to purchase these things, because your theory is there's no trick to getting out of paying federal taxes or any kind of taxes. There's no trick. There's simply non-compliance. You just don't pay.
That's right.
There's no other way around it.
That's right.
And once you purchase something saying, here's how to get out of it, now you go from not paying your taxes to it's more of a criminal investigation, right?
Right now, it's a criminal investigation, and this is what you've just done. Is if you just say, you know what, I hate this IRS, I hate the IRS, I'm just not going to comply. You stop filing one day, and they do what they're going to do. They're going to file substitute filed returns against you. You're going to ignore them. Then years go by. They're going to send levy notices. They're going to file a lien against you. But if you don't have any assets, if you're sort of off the grid, there's really nothing to do. And there's really not going to be a criminal charge because they don't even know what you believe. The charge of federal tax evasion requires a specific intent to defraud the U.S. Treasury. That's kind of difficult to prove if you've never done anything. Hey, why don't you file your taxes? I mean, there's millions of people who don't file.
I didn't know I was supposed to. What are taxes?
God, you know what? I got behind me, and then I was worried. I was worried what would happen if I did file. Because I was missing all these years, I just wanted to keep a low profile. I didn't want to, be charged, which I hear all the time, which is a reasonable position. Like, I was afraid what would happen if I came clean.
Yep.
That's all. I would come. You want me to come clean? I'll do it right now. And those are the people like, okay, yeah, just come clean. And that's the vast majority of people who don't file taxes. But if, on the other hand, you go and you file things, and then you file things with this specific language that the IRS has seen before. This is an unconstitutional, I'm going to file this, and you're claiming some sort of reason why this income isn't taxable. The tax code of 1954 has repealed all income taxes. It's like, well, we did have the tax code of 1986, though. Well, whatever. People ignore what they want to ignore. The problem is when you go to buy one of these programs is you're giving the IRS the roadmap to convict you. Mm-hmm. You don't want to do that.
No.
So if you really wanted to, if you wanted to frustrate the IRS, you just shut up. Mm-hmm. Just
don't pay your taxes.
Just don't pay your taxes.
We're not recommending that,
Of course we're not, but we're recommending is don't go right into the fire. Don't walk in. And I think this is just, to me, it's like you walked up the volcano and you said, this is an evil volcano. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to jump into it and stop the volcano. Mm-hmm. That's really what he was doing.
Right. And my question to you was, all right, so he's well-intentioned. We all know the government is screwing us. Mm-hmm. So, yes, say we do want to fight it. Mm-hmm. You know, what do you need? We're guessing about 30% of the population on your side.
Yeah.
So it's not an individual fight.
Yeah.
But you need people behind you.
Right. Things aren't done overnight. That if you're looking for, whenever you look at a political movement, how long it took that political movement to be, first it's mocked, first it's ignored, then it's mocked, and years of being mocked, and then all of a sudden it's the law. I mean, some notorious ones or famous ones, the Anti-Temperance League,
mm-hmm.
That started in like 1830, 1840. The Anti-Saloon League, that was around for years. All these guys are saying we need to make alcohol illegal.
Damn.
Right? I mean, could you imagine walking down the street in 1840 saying we got to ban alcohol? It's the root of all evil. How much you're going to be laughed at. Mm-hmm. And then there it is. Like, holy shit, they actually did it.
Yep.
But it's, generations later. So you can't start a movement by snapping because you're the one dude who's outraged. Mm-hmm. You can't do that. You need to be a little smarter. You need to get a public opinion on your side. And for the first part is that you're going to have to endure the first part of being mocked, being diminished. And that's going to happen for years. And then one day, all of a sudden, you got your way. Like, wow, just like that. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't just like that. It was all the people before you who were thinking of a strategy. Mm-hmm. How do we get people to see our point and to see the evil that the income tax creates?
So he could potentially be the starting point for that.
Maybe. I mean, I'd be very happy if that would be the case. Because what happens is these guys end up destroying themselves for the greater good, but with no strategy.
Yep.
You got to have a strategy. You don't win a war by beating your chest the loudest.
Yep.
You go in and you make that poor sucker give his life for his country.
All right, so we're going to take one more quick break, and after that, a little bit of talk about perhaps how the government may lie now and then. You think that's a possibility? Maybe.
Next week on Parental Advisory, we're going to have an in-house studio guest, Tom Groth, an ex-IRSMedic alumni, and he's going to talk about innocent spouse.
What is innocent spouse?
Innocent spouse relief is a great way to get rid of a tax liability when maybe it was your spouse, husband or wife, who was responsible for it. And guess what? You don't even need to be divorced to take advantage of it.
Nice. Well, be sure to watch our video with IRSMedic alumni, attorney Tom Groth.
And we'll be going into some of the great details. And by the way, IRSMedic is sponsoring Parental Advisory, and we are now up to 15 episodes, I think.
Yep.
And we have some really good ones. I think our first one, we hit it off really great. We talked about how to get out of jury duty. Mm-hmm. And we talked about how the King of Thailand may have an IRS problem. And Claudine, what's your favorite episode so far?
I think the Taxpayer Bill of Rights with our own suggestions on how to improve it.
That's great. So be sure to watch ParentalAdvisoryTheShow.com.
What do you think?
Well, I just compared the U.S. to Al-Qaeda.
I wasn't comparing. That was not my intention. My intention was to say going to fight a war against a crazy group of people by yourself is, yeah.
Okay, that's all. I just want to make sure that, there could be people listening. This could sabotage my future political career, which actually Erica said she would divorce me if I ever did do that. So my power is going to stay from behind the mic.
Behind the scenes.
And I think I'm too lazy to go out there and shake hands. All that handshaking.
I have to make signs.
I got to show up and park my car. Right, the signs, and you got to get like, is this the place? Okay. no, I'm at the wrong place.
Where's the town hall?
So
So no, that was not our intention at
Okay.
all. Just fighting the good fight
That's
against not good things. So we're talking about Irwin Schiff, an American tax protester, and he's fighting now a government that perhaps isn't always 100% honest all the time. Do we think?
That's right. And I mean, it's sort of, don't we know that? Who doesn't know that? And this is a story that, this brings me back to days. Oh, yes. My band days. And if you listen to our intro to the intro music and the outro music is from the band that I was in, Ridland, with my buddy Phil Kovacs and Mark Slagowski on drums. We had some pretty good success for a band around Connecticut, but many things went into the picture of not being able to get to the next level. I have a bunch of theories on why. No one likes hearing original music, and the drinking age of 21 killed the local music scene. Therefore, that's why we get to listen to crap now. That's just basically my rundown of the theory. But we were doing pretty good. This is about 1996. We were at the cleverly named Wallipalooza in 96. And we were the headliners. Yeah.
I didn't know that. Headliners.
We were the headliners, and we had a decent crowd there. We were going on, and I think I was in decent shape. Or Mark told me, he goes, Anthony, you're a pretty good bassist. Just when you're drinking, you got to stop. And I'm like, all right, so I'll drink after I play. Okay, gotcha. And so I'm in okay shape, and we're playing. I'm moving around, doing a little sound check, and I can see way out in the audience, there's a guy, some kind of hippie guy, with a sign that says, "The government lies."
The Dickens, you say?
Yeah, he said he had a sign out there that says, "The government lies." And then, like, his buddy had one of those inflatable alien things, I think, way out in the distance. And I was just like, what the hell is this? I'm like, all right, whatever. And, so we go into our opening song, Jam Away, Jam Away. And then the second, Jam Away, Jam Away. And my job, because bass, is sort of the bassist of the band, right? My job was to engage the crowd. They're like, "Hey, Anthony, you got the gift of gab. Why don't you sort of get the crowd going?"
So at this point, had you taken the advice and not had any drinks, or perhaps had you
I
imbibed?
It was maybe two or I had a couple, right? Always a couple.
Excuse me, sir.
I was holding it for a friend. I don't know because there's also this thing where if you drink, you're like, okay, I better watch myself. But if you don't, you're like, I'll say whatever I want. I'm sober. I got to be right. So I just stop. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go down this road. No one's asking me to go down this road, but I'm just going to go do it. So the hippie guy with the sign is out there, and my younger brother, Frank, is pretty close to the stage. And I just go up to the microphone, and I go, everyone, please stop. I need silence. Silence. I have a very important message.
Oh my gosh.
The government is lying.
No way. Did you hear what that guy just said? The government is lying. Holy shit.
And my Frank was looking at me. He's like, "Oh, that was good." I'm like, "All right, I made the right call."
Was there much cheering and
No,
clapping?
mostly confusion.
Confused?
Mostly confusion. And that's sort of how a lot of my interaction went. Oh, he said something. It probably meant something. I don't know, though. But you always can count on your siblings to know what the hell you're doing. So he did. And Phil's like, all right. He goes, let's play, man. He goes, he's a fan. We don't, come on. Don't, he's a paying fan.
Was he the one guy that was like...
We had a few of those.
Yeah.
That was like, wow. So it was some fun. And that was just like, I couldn't believe that somebody really thought it was a political statement to say that the government lies. It's just like, well, don't you know? You're an adult. You should know the government lies. Even if you're 16, I don't know, maybe I had more interactions with the government when I was 16 to sort of understand that the government lies. That's what they do. They're going to lie, and they're going to cover for each other. And to discover their lie is going to be really, really hard. They're looking out for themselves. That's what they do. That's what government is. It's a cartel of self-interest people that are interested in making sure that no one takes away their power. Will they lie to do that? Absolutely. They'll lie gloriously. That's what you're up against.
It's like a legal mafia.
Okay, you said it.
Oh, sorry.
Am I supposed to wait? Am I supposed to disagree?
That's true. I'm going to make a sign that says the government is the legal mafia.
The government. I have news. The government is the legal mafia. In ways, yeah. I mean, that's really it is. The government is which has the legal monopoly on violence.
Yep. And, God bless Irwin Schiff for trying to fight it. You got to give the guy props.
Yeah, absolutely.
Extremely brave.
Absolutely.
Very intelligent. And, just so sad, too, the way that he ended up passing away. He was in prison. His family had filed for compassionate release because he was dying of cancer. And it literally sounded like it was just held up by red tape.
Right.
For months.
Right. And the warden of the prison wanted it granted. Everybody wanted it granted, but there it is, the government doing what the government doing. Hey, man, that might have been someone's break time.
It's Peter Schiff, his son, had this quote. We tried to get him out of prison on compassionate release so that he could live out the final months of his life with his family, spending some precious moments with the grandchildren he had barely known. But he did not live long enough for the bureaucratic process to be completed. 2 months after the process began, despite the combined help of a sitting Democratic U.S. Congresswoman and a Republican U.S. Senator, his petition was still sitting on someone's desk waiting for yet another signature, even though the prison warden wanted him released. Just sitting on someone's desk. They could have gone on vacation for a couple days. They could have gone out to lunch.
They didn't feel like doing it.
No.
Or just that. Like, no, I'm going to do something else.
And he was 87 years old, terminally ill, legally blind. He could barely breathe, barely walk. They had him chained to his hospital bed with 2 armed guards outside his door.
2 armed guards. And by the way, Irwin Schiff never, ever did anything violent.
No, extremely peaceful.
Never, ever. He never, and look, you know who the state fears. I mean, the state does fear someone like Irwin Schiff who could upset the apple cart, but he was going about it. I think he was going about it the wrong way. Mm-hmm. There's got to be a better way to do that, and I hope that he does become an inspiration for a movement to people say, wait, we got to change that. I would say also take a look at my awesome tax proposal. Mm-hmm. Might be little tips there for you. That was a previous podcast.
Yep.
And that's what you're against. I mean, there it is. Even if the government wants to help you, it can't.
It won't. Yeah. You're right. It can't.
It really isn't able to.
It's like it stood in its own way.
It is. My father, this is a little slightly off topic, but my father is a lifelong bureaucrat. And one of his, he worked for the state of Connecticut before founding the firm with me, among other government entities. And he said one of his favorite bosses had this quote. And he said, 400 people. And he goes, what does that mean, 400 people? He goes, once you have a government entity that has 400 people, you need no outside work to make everybody busy.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's sort of...
Because you have your training, you have your HR, you have your IT.
Yep.
You have interpersonal meetings. You have meetings about goals and objectives. You don't need anything from the outside to actually do to fill up everyone's day.
And still get paid.
Right. And then, you need your people doing payroll.
Yep.
People to audit all your payroll to make sure all your books are in order. So that's one of the crazy things about, and that's really when you think about large government organizations, that the organizations benefit those who run them. Mm-hmm. That is true. That is true regardless of government or private industry. But in private industry, if they're only thinking about themselves, well, they better be thinking about their customers too. Otherwise, there will be no you. Mm-hmm. But in government, there's no pressure.
No.
We're going to get it.
We'll stay in business. Who's going to put us out of business?
We'll get paid. Don't worry.
We got this.
Yeah.
All right. So tell me your takeaway on Irwin.
Brave man, a brilliant man. Mm-hmm. And I wish I had half the bravery he does. I also wish that he did not involve himself in some of the arguments that he made, because I just think it distracts the intellectual and moral high ground he has. Some of his things he did, they're not good arguments. They're not persuasive. I would like him to have stuck to the basics a little bit more about how this violates, and really start slowly convincing people to say this is not an Irwin Schiff lifetime project. This, whatever I'm doing, will not be enjoyed for 3 generations. but maybe I could be part of the groundwork that gets it there. Maybe I could be one of those early heroes that was mocked, ridiculed, but I really wish he didn't have to die in prison. But also the fact that he died in prison shows you what the government is.
Mm-hmm. They're not the most honest.
Not the most honest. So Irwin Schiff, I'll call him a hero.
I concur.
All right.
All right. So next week on Parental Advisory, we're going to talk about innocent spouse relief. So let's say my husband was doing some illegal tax things. I could potentially go down with him, but you're saying there's a possibility of getting out of that.
Right. Now, if you and your husband file singly, jointly, and there's criminal charges coming about, the IRS will probably indict both of you just to put pressure on your husband to plead.
Oh, okay.
That's a dirty thing. And that's not really what innocent spouse is about. Innocent spouse is more when there's no criminal charges. You guys file jointly. There's a bill sent to both of you. But really, typically, your husband, this is usually what it is. Husband is self-employed, has a business. The business runs up the tax debts that really don't have anything to do with the spouse. So that's where it is allowed. It's a nice thing to do too. You still can be, and we've had some great successes, and I think we'll talk with Tom about those. Some great successes about how we were able to keep people together. Actually, we were actually able to remove that financial pressure that was driving couples apart and maybe headed towards divorce. We were actually use that to get them back together.
Wow, IRSMedic, saving marriages from divorce. I didn't realize that was happening. Also, tune in next week. We've got a 2-part series on tax brackets. They don't necessarily mean what you think they mean.
Oh, God, no.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us live on Parental Advisory. Happy Halloween. Thanks for joining Parental Advisory, hosted by Anthony Parent, produced by Claudine Gindel, that's me, engineered by Chris Chen. For more podcasts, visit our website at parentaladvisoryshow.com and like us on Facebook to submit story ideas. We'd like to thank our sponsors, IRSMedic.com, the law offices of Parent, and Wynn, LLP, real tax attorneys for tough tax problems.